Hello and welcome to Rise Above the Grind Entrepreneur Edition. I am your hostess, Alissa Bickar, the consultress, helping you to recontextualize all that is good and needs to move with us into the future in today's age of disruption. How are we defining words? How are we defining ourselves? And what is it that we need to empower ourselves and the people around us so that we can be more successful as time goes on? So we are busting some myths here, redefining what it means to be personal, professional, and exactly does the grind even mean? Today we have Lori Karpman here, a recovering legal professional who is a word nerd just like me. And I am so excited to hear how you are moving and operating in today's age of disruption because wisdom, my love, is what I feel like we connect with at the end of the day, is why we're friends. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, high five. So I always start with the question, define the term grind. How does that show up for you in your professional life, or what does the word even mean when you hear the phrase grind?
When I think of the grind, I think of just sitting down and putting your head in and focusing. But to me, the grind has a negative connotation. It's of things that you don't like to do. So I don't really feel that, like in my business, in my life, I don't feel like I'm grinding. I love what I do. And so everything that I do makes a contribution to what I love to do. So I don't feel the grind in the same way that if I were employed for somebody else and I were going in and doing the same job every day, that might feel more like a grind to me. But because my business is so different and I deal with different files and different people, I don't really find that I have so much of a grind. So that's for me.
Yeah, so I want to just unpack for a second. Your initial knee jerk is that it's got a negative connotation. And what I
Yeah.
have found through these conversations is that not only does it tend to have a negative connotation, sometimes it can be downright depleting, where we think, oh, I have to grind away. Like I feel like a coffee bean in the grinder, just whoop, getting
Yep.
into a pulp. But when I hear the focus and the passion, and how you kind of how would you say, if you the grind has a negative connotation and then you say, but when you sit down purposefully it doesn't really feel like that anymore? Is there a new word you'd be using, or is there a different way you would describe that conviction?
I would just call it ambition.
Mm. And
I would
so
just call it ambition. It's about doing the things I need to do to get where I want to go. So I keep my eye on the prize, on the end goal. My end goal has me retired in Costa Rica writing for a living. So when I choose projects, when I, choose things to do, I see if they're going to help me to get to my end goal.
mhm.
So I'm always trying to start with the end in mind and then work backwards.
Yeah. So some of the folks who've come through here have termed that ambition the grind for them. Like my son sits here and plays video games and he goes, "Mom, I'm grinding right now. I got to get to the next level." And so I was like, "Isn't that interesting that, like you, my definition of the grind is like being pressed to a pulp and like
Yeah.
completely exhausted and depleted, but to him, it's like he sees that ambition and that end in mind." So, we this today's day and age, words are taking on vastly different meanings. So, being that your discipline is in copywriting and in communicating with people, how do you kind of address or transcend that, like, words are subjective and their meaning is in the eye of the recipient, not necessarily the person who's trying to communicate?
Right. When I write, I always place myself in the place of the reader. So if I were reading this or I wanted to learn about this topic, what would I write? What would I say?
Mm,
And I find that helps me to communicate better because one of the things that I'm good at is getting down the client's voice. So when I write for clients, it's not in my voice, it has to be in theirs. And that's one of the things that I have a process that I take clients through so we can determine what their actual authentic voice is. And then I can write in that voice so it sounds like it's coming from them.
hmm
So it makes them more approachable to their target market, to their clients.
And so what I'm hearing, though, in copywriting, in communications, in visibility and getting the word out in general, it is very much about turning the lens around.
Yeah.
It is not from like in this conversation, right? I'm listening to you, I'm synthesizing, and I'm saying back to you what I think I've heard. And we have nuances in the middle that is like, well, if I'm speaking to you, I can say it this way, but if I'm speaking to, my kids or my congregation, right? I'm using totally different words. So how hard is it, or is it maybe, oh, I should be very careful about how I say this. For me, writing copy was one of the hardest things to do. I felt that it was like almost like an obligation. I had to sit down and concentrate, and nothing came out right. To me, that felt very much like a grind until I realized my creative expression, like my sacred expression for myself, like so that I can hear myself clearly, is writing. So I had those two things at odds, where writing for me for clarity was very different than positioning myself to be understood by people who I can make an impact for. How do you find that in your business? Where do you see this? I mean, people are hiring you to write like them, like they communicate, but where do you see their resistance or their grind or their I guess their point that they need you to overcome?
What I find is most clients really have not defined their client avatar. They shoot darts. They're just shooting darts and hoping something lands. It's a shotgun approach. They don't understand who their target market is. They also don't understand that they have more than one target market and the message needs to be different for each one of those markets. So a lot of them try and use something that's like I said, like a shotgun approach where they, post something generic and then they wonder why they don't get anything from it. Is because if you're going to be very generic, people don't see themselves in generics, they see themselves in specifics.
Yes.
So that's sort of how I see it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, curiosity always for me is, how do they know that they are in a place where they need to hire someone like you? How do they understand that they have a problem?
They understand that they have a problem because they know they can't do it themselves. People come to me and people either say to me, I love writing or I hate writing. There's sort of no in between. And
Hmm.
for most part, my clients are people who may enjoy writing, but they realize that it's better for them to farm it out and get it done right than for them to try and do it themselves or try and do it themselves with chat. My clients are too busy for that. They just want it off their plate. They want it done. They want it done right. And and I take them through this whole discovery process with a brand questionnaire, which is like 8 pages long, to really, really understand who they are, what they offer, what are their services, what are their benefits, and who actually needs to have that information.
Right. Yeah, and clarity is the name of the game, right? To know what words you're saying and how they land. So for me, when I talk about the industrial age and how doing business is not the same as being in business because people buy who you are, it
Yeah,
sounds very much like you're helping them to craft the what they do in language that truly represents who they are. And
yeah.
I can't wait for our VIP panel to chime in on this because I feel like as we talk about the things that are resistance points for us, the stuff in our culture right now that we need to overcome, we're what I think all of us professionals are seeing is that like the marketplace is crowded full of noise. Everyone's talking. Everyone's got something to say and they're saying it to people. And so like any daily scroll down one of your social media platforms and you'll see content producers, people saying stuff. Can you how do you address that for your clients? How do you address that there's so much noise out there that to make sure that they are, getting the visibility they need, but also being visible to the right people?
Yeah. Well, usually, if they're not being visible to the right people, it's usually because their message is wrong. So, 9 times out of 10, it's about changing their messaging so that they actually are speaking to their target market. And, what we know from sales is that selling features and benefits doesn't work. People don't buy features and benefits, people buy pain and solutions. So when you
Mm,
see features and benefits, like imagine you're buying a software and you always see that chart. You see the different software at the top, you see all the functionalities, and then they tick off the ones that theirs does and barely tick off the ones that others do. That's selling features and benefits. But selling problems and solutions is saying to someone, is communicating to the reader that you know what their problem is. Oh yeah, I understand that. I've been there. I can fix that. Um, that's the part that most companies miss. And that's why their messages don't connect and don't resonate because they're not selling pain and solutions. They're selling features and benefits.
yeah. So have you had this very same issue yourself? Did you have to overcome this kind of positioning in your own business?
Um, Not really in my business because I've sort of created both of my own businesses sort of, as I like them. So it's not something that I've really experienced in my own business, but I experience it with almost all my clients.
Mm.
So, they say, well, this is what we do. Okay, I don't care what you do. What's the problem you solve? That's what I want to know. What is the problem you
Yes.
solve?
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And we all need people who can see us outside of ourselves. So
Yeah.
giving them that perspective that says, okay, what is the problem you're solving? Well, I do this. Yes, doing. Right. But what do people need from you? And
Yeah.
let's work backwards. I love
Yes.
that. And so I guess as a example, can you bring us through a story or something where you've kind of addressed and demonstrated this, where you took someone out of their pain of not being visible or not converting clients into some version of their success as they define it?
Sure. So I have a client or had a client. They still exist. We just don't work together anymore. They just didn't need my services anymore. It's all good. Um, and she was selling franchises. She had a lash salon where they do eyelashes,
Hmm.
and she wanted to sell franchises. And she had a beautiful website. She's an absolutely gorgeous woman. She's, a great model for her own product. Um, but she had a lot of trouble converting prospects into franchisees. And a lot of that, again, was because her message was wrong. She had her website. Now, her salons are in different parts of the US and are for anybody. On her website, she had primarily young, beautiful Black women. And so that's who she was attracting as potential franchisees because that's what she showed. That was what was in her pictures. And so that's what people assume the company is. So she wasn't getting a lot of requests from people from different nationalities. And that was the thing that we solved. So we redid her website and we have pictures of young women, we have pictures of old women, we have pictures of slim women and heavier women and real women. They're all pictures of real women. In variety shapes, colors, sizes, and that made a really big difference because that opened up the market for people to see, oh, okay, well, it's not just for young, beautiful Black women. So
Right.
that was a perfect example of where her messaging made the huge difference.
Yeah, and the images those messages create. I mean, I love that because we're all, I put this rainbow background on behind me if you're watching this on the YouTube channel because I often refer to industrial over here and creative over here because it's like left and right brain. It gives people an image and a place to kind of collect some of the stuff that I talk about. And because I'm Italian and I talk with my hands, it helps people to see, okay, she pointed over there and then she pointed way over here. So they're having an experience of me
Yeah.
rather so than just trying to interpret for themselves what that might mean. So I think it's really valuable what you do. Now, I am so excited to move into our VIP panel selection. And this, by the way, just so you know, is our first VIP panel that is going to broadcast with the podcast. I want to be able to bring all of
Nice.
these voices and all of these faces and names and perspectives into the world. So, hey, if you're used to my 10, 15-minute podcast interviews, cool, man. See you on the next one. But if you want to watch this conversation go deep and see how other people are picking up the conversation and what it means to them and their business, please stay tuned. So, Lori, where can people go to find you and learn more about what you're up to in the world, especially if they are also not recovering lawyers, but active lawyers looking to?
Yeah. The best place to
Your
find me is on LinkedIn. It's
Okay.
Lori Karpman on LinkedIn. That's the best place to find me because all my other contact information is there as well.
Beautiful. I
So
mean,
just hook up
preferred,
with me on LinkedIn.
and that's where people can send you direct messages where you are the
Yep.
most active.
Yep. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, right on. High five for opening up the container and talking about the grind of visibility.